everyone, this is Brooke and you're listening to the Vintage Gardener Podcast, which is where I give you tips and tricks on gardening, particularly if you're like me and you garden in southern New Jersey, which is Zone 7A. So welcome back to the year 2 of the plant trials. Tonight we are going to be, or today, depending upon when you're listening, we are going to be discussing poppies. Okay guys, so poppies have probably become my new favorite flower. I have several, but this is like definitely on the list. This is the first year I was able to successfully get any in the ground and had blooms, and boy, they were beautiful, and I like them, and quite frankly, I know for those of you who are following me on Instagram, you guys love them too, because I cannot tell you the amount of likes and comments and questions that I got on all the poppies that I grew this year. In fact, I would say of all the plants that I planted, they probably got the most interest. And I think it's just because, annual poppies are not something you can buy in store. A lot of people don't grow them, which I don't know why, because they're so easy. So let's start off discussing the types that I had. And I think I've got like 11 varieties in here. Okay, so first up is the Flemish Antique, which is probably my favorite poppy of the group. It gets 4 feet tall. The flower is red with white. Depending upon the flower, you can have a lot more red and a little white, but then some of the blooms were actually, they had a lot more white in it, so the effect was kind of more like pink. It was absolutely beautiful. The blooms were like the size of my hand. They really did look like peonies, and there was definitely a lot of confusion, especially with the other peony flowering poppy. There was a lot of confusion as to what I had grown, and there was a lot of very surprised people who noticed I was posting pictures of what they thought were peonies, like in June and a little bit in July. But no, it was definitely poppies. So it got the same watering requirements that everything in my garden did, which is 3 times a week, with aside from the fertilizer I put down when I was establishing the bed, no additional fertilizer. I planted it 6 inches apart, and that's pretty much standard for all the ones I grew. I just did them 6 inches apart, and they did very well. It's a very narrow plant, so I would say it probably got between maybe 6 to 8 inches wide. It's one of all the poppies, I can tell you, they do well in clumps grown tight together. I was surprised at anything by how big they got, seeing how I really did jam pack them in there, but they seemed to thrive. They really, really liked it. So I did a January winter sowing. I had amazing germination. Of all the ones I planted, I think they probably got the biggest in the cups. You can definitely separate them on planting. So if you're winter sowing, and especially if you do like the solo cup terrarium like I did, and you have like a bunch in a cup, don't be afraid to divide them into 4, because that's what I ended up doing. I thought at first I would have killed a lot of them, but I didn't. They all survived, which is surprising because poppies have tap roots, and that's typically what you don't want to disturb. And I've been learning a lot about that. I'll give you my conclusions at the end, but they definitely were aphid magnets, so next year I will definitely make sure to give them preventative spray of either sulfur or some neem oil. They had huge heavy heads. I definitely have to support them because they did fall over a lot. And next year I said I was going to try growing them in the 5-inch deep trays that I got that are left over from my germander plugs, just to see how they'll do. I think they'll do fine. The reason I'm strongly considering doing that is because when I go to plant them, those plugs are very skinny, and so it'll be easier to kind of tuck them in places, because I know my beds are going to start filling in next year. Definitely one to try. Okay, so the next one is the Lilac Pompom Poppy. I got these seeds from Swallowtail Seeds, and unfortunately I got some duds. So this is one I tried in 2020, and if you guys remember back in 2020, my greenhouse flipped over a couple of times. I lost a lot of things and knocked out a lot of my tags. There was a tray of poppies where I did not get a single seed germinate, and I wasn't sure which one it was. So I tried it again this year, and none of them germinate. at all. So I'm going to try them again, but this time I'm going to get them from Baker Creek Seeds. You know, it's weird because like with Swallowtail, I've gotten other ones of their seeds and they were just fine. Apparently this was a bad batch of seeds. So like I said, this is one I'll try again because the pictures, you know, I've seen people grow them. They're very beautiful. Okay, so the next up is a Shirley Poppy variety called Amazing Gray. So this one is a shorter poppy. It gets 12 inches. It definitely has a purple gray look to it. It looks like crepe paper. As a matter of fact, when I sent a picture of it to my sister, she wasn't sure. Well, she knew it was real because you could see that it was growing out of the cup, but it doesn't look real. So I did winter sowing, and the plants, you know, when they were in the cup, they were really, really tiny. And I was not expecting most of them. I wasn't expecting them to survive. You know, I did plant them in clumps. You know, with that, if I were to do it again, I would definitely just, even if there's 3 in a cup, just plant the entire thing as one huge, chunk. The one thing I would say about this one is that they had a low germination rate. So I said for a mass effect, you'll need to start at least 500 seeds. So I did get some seeds last year from GeoSeeds that came late, and I think there's 1,000 in there. That's kind of what you need. The cups where I had ended up with 3 of them in a cup was very small. A lot of times I ended up, you know, with 1, even, you know, there was containers that I didn't have any. I noted that I had started 45 containers, but I ended up planting a dozen or so. So like I said, it's definitely a low germination. It's one of the poppies that can be grown in a container very well. Now, the one thing I will say is that I did early winter sowing in 2021, but last year I did have some of these, and I did a March sowing with these. And from what I remember, they actually germinated very well. So next year I'm going to try it, but I'm going to try starting them a little later in the season, maybe in March, because I think I might get better results. But it's definitely very pretty. Definitely one you should add to your garden. Okay, so then I had a double black peony. This was kind of like a peony, like a peony flowering poppy. It was very, it was like a deep maroon color, almost like, you know, closer to purple. It was a little shorter than Flemish Antique. I would say it got to be 36 to 48 inches. I did winter sow it in January of 2021. It does grow well in clumps, and it's definitely something that you should not plant any later than mid-April. I did plant some, I think, in some of the other beds. They just didn't do as well because I planted them a little too late. So with poppies, get them out earlier is better. Okay, so then I grew some Pandora's Mix poppies, and I was really surprised by this because, actually, you know what? I'm not surprised by this. This is one of the ones I got early in the season. So I did winter sow them in January. Once again, they had a great germination. They were a little bit shorter, I would say, because this was a mix of poppies. I would say it was probably between 24 to 36 inches. Definitely don't separate them too much. It's better to err on the side of growing them in clumps. The mix I had definitely seemed to have a lot more purple than red in this mix, so I don't know if I would put it in the red bed again, but I would definitely put it in the purple section because they were really pretty. Also, my promenade beds, because that's, you know, pink, red, white, and purple are the colors for out there. Definitely another one that I would grow again. It was just, they were beautiful. They just really were. So that's another one to add to your list. Okay, so then I planted a variety called Black Swan Poppy, and this had like a fringed edge, and it was like a deep maroon. And I winter sowed this in January 2021 with old seeds, and surprisingly, I had good germination rates. It had a very pretty frilled edge, and I would definitely grow it again. Okay, then I did Florist Pepperbox, and I got these seeds from Baker Creek, and I did winter sowing in January. excellent germination. I really did. Interestingly enough, I didn't notice when I got those seeds that, in fact, Florist Pepperbox actually are red and some of them are purple. I thought they were all red, so I had some purple ones, and I know that I posted on Instagram, well, this kind of looks like Florist Pepperbox, except it's purple. That's exactly what it was. So I would say it's probably a 50-50 purple to red mix. And, unfortunately, I didn't tag my seeds. So, the purple didn't fend the red that was in there. But I'm just letting you know, like, if you're going to do like a whole solid, like if you're going for solid red, just be mindful of the fact that this is a mix. Okay, so the next one up is Frosted Salmon Poppy. So loved this one. I absolutely loved it. I inadvertently killed a lot of them. I did winter sow in January. I did have good germination, but when I was winter sowing, I remember I had my cups inside of trays that ended up collecting water, and so I think a lot of the seedlings drowned. This year, instead of using the traditional trays, the holes like the containers, I'm just gonna go and get like the containers, like the trays. The trays, they're kind of like mesh, so that way, if it gets rain, it's not collecting in those trays. I don't have to empty it out. I did get this one planted a little later, so it did not get as tall as it should have. I think it only got maybe like 18 inches tall, and I know it will probably get closer to between like 36 to I think 48 inches. It's definitely, I want to get this one planted much earlier so I can get it taller. The blooms really weren't, even though it says salmon, they really weren't an orangey color. It was definitely pink. So I had it in the orange section. It definitely stood out. So I did get a poppy, a Tangerine Gem Poppy that's perennial actually for the orange section. So next year I would grow this one in the pink section. And I think I collected some seed heads, but I'm going to order another pack from Baker's Creek. Absolutely beautiful. It was gorgeous peony blooms. Of all the poppies, I think this one most closely resembled a peony. Okay, so then I did a blue poppy. It is the Menacopsis, like the Lingholm hybrid. And so it is supposed to be a perennial. The flowers are blue. I did some January winter sowing. I had no success. I've been doing some research on this one. It is one of those very, apparently it's very tricky to germinate. Actually, I probably need to order. So I think I got mine from Swallowtail. I had a couple germinate, but they just didn't do anything. And I think the issue was that I used a spoma potting soil. So I'm going to try it with something else next year. I'm going to try it with the Pro Mix. It's just with the Espoma, I think it was just too dry. The blue poppy is from the mountainous region, so I think it needs that cold, wet, damp conditions to sprout, and the Espoma potting mix was just way too hydrophobic. So I have noted on my care instructions from the research I did this year that it's the type of thing that you should not let it flower the first year or else it won't perennialize. So it's one of those types of things you need to cut it and then the second year. So I'm going to try it again. I'm actually going to look and see, does anybody sell any plants? I don't know that anybody actually does, but it's one of those things. It's going to be kind of tricky. So maybe one year I'll succeed. I think I do have some more seeds from like Swallowtail, but for some strange reason, I think they're still in my refrigerator. So who knows? Okay. Then I did the Angel's Choir mix, which I have to say I was very surprised by because I got these from GeoSeeds. They came really late. So I did start them really late. Like I would say probably mid to late March. This is definitely a shorter one. It's 12 to 18 inches. It is a mix of colors. So there was like all kinds, and I put them in the pink section. They really weren't all pink. It was like a grab bag. It was like pink, white, some red. They had great germination. They did bloom later because I started the seeds later. So they were petite. and it was really pretty. It was something I would definitely grow again. I'm interested to see if it will get taller if I plant it earlier. And then the very last is the American Legion Poppy. So this one, I tried winter sowing in late March, maybe early April. I didn't get any viable seedlings. So this is one I will definitely try again in January. I was a little bit sad, but hey, I know they say that with winter, like winter sowing, you can do it between January to April. And, some of the seeds, like for example, Angel's Choir, maybe you could do that, but the American Legion, no. So it's kind of like a Flanders poppy style. So anyway, I didn't get any of those. So once again, I'm going to try that again. And hopefully next year I will have better success. So anyway, guys, that is it for the episode. Just some concluding remarks. Like I said, poppies are one of those things. Start them early, get them out early. Even when you think, oh my gosh, it's so early, we're going to get snow. Just put them out. They will really thank you for it. I'm going to, in addition to starting some by, like the solo cup method, I'm actually going to, because I have a lot of seeds, I'm actually going to sprinkle them out in my, the seeds that I collected from last year. I'm going to sprinkle them in the promenade beds and just, see what happens. The poppies that were in those beds didn't do as well. I think part of it is that because the soil is a little bit sandier, and it just seems like they struggle to get established. So I'm going to try sprinkling some of those out in like January before we get all the snow and that sort of thing. And maybe and see if it'll do better for next year. I did get some additional poppies for the beds. Like for example, the red, I got this like scarlet one. So there's going to be some that are going to be added to this list, because this is just the start of my love affair with poppies. I did not try using any in bouquets. Especially the ones that had the peony flowering heads. I wasn't even sure. I'm not sure if those stems can hold up, if you put them in a vase. But I did see somewhere online that somebody was using like floral wire and basically putting floral wire up the stems to give it more strength, and that sort of thing. So it's something I'm going to try. Yeah, this year, because I was so busy planting, I didn't get to start doing like bouquets and stuff so much later in the season. But hopefully next year, since everything is set, I will get to do more of that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, this Friday night is going to be the call-in show. The topic is recipes from produce you've grown in your vegetable garden. And of course, stay tuned for another fun-filled episode next Sunday or Monday. And next week, I think I'm going to do the coneflowers, which didn't start from seed, but I did get a lot of starts. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast.